Commander Jake Morgan stood at the edge of Docking Bay 7, his boots planted firmly on the polished steel floor, the cold light from the overhead panels making the metal gleam. He had been called here by High Command. The message short and mysterious: report to Bay 7 for a special assignment. That was all. No explanation, no details, just orders around him. The vast bay echoed with the sounds of workers moving crates, engineers checking shuttles, and security guards pacing, with rifles slung over their shoulders outside the bay's massive shielded doors. The stars of the Empire's capital system twinkled like frozen sparks. A sleek Imperial shuttle was approaching, its hull black as midnight, with the golden crest of the Empire on its side. Jake had been expecting a high-ranking official, maybe even a decorated admiral, someone with decades of experience, someone who looked like they could lead fleets into battle. But as the shuttle touched down and the ramp hissed open, Jake's brow furrowed from the shadows inside the shuttle. A small figure stepped out. She was tiny, barely up to his waist. Her steps were precise, her back perfectly straight. She wore a crisp Imperial uniform lined with silver thread medals, pinned neatly across her chest. Her skin had a faint blue glow. Her short silver hair shimmered under the bay lights, and her eyes, sharp, piercing, almost too calm, swept across the bay like she was measuring every person in it. The dockmaster stiffened and saluted. "Commander Vera has arrived," he announced. Jake blinked. Commander. Surely this was a mistake. She looked like a cadet, maybe even younger. But the rank insignia on her collar left no doubt she was an Imperial commander, and she outranked him as she approached. Her gaze locked onto Jake. It wasn't a friendly look. It was the kind of look a predator gives before deciding if you are a threat or just prey. "Commander Morgan," she said, her voice calm but sharp. "From this moment, you will follow my orders." Jake felt a chill crawl down his spine. "With respect, Commander," he said, keeping his tone professional. "I wasn't informed about this change in command." She didn't answer. Instead, she glanced at a datapad in her hand, her eyes scanning faster than any human could read. Then she looked back at him. "Your last 3 missions ended with unnecessary losses," she said bluntly. "The Empire cannot afford a commander who repeats mistakes." The crew members nearby shifted uncomfortably. No one spoke. Jake clenched his jaw, his pride stinging. "I did what was necessary given the situation," he replied. She tilted her head slightly, almost like she was amused. "That's what all failing commanders say before they are replaced," she said, and walked past him toward the control room. Whispers broke out among the crew. Jake caught fragments. "Is she serious?" "She's so small. I heard she's dangerous." He ignored them and followed her. Determined to find out what was going on inside the control room, she stood at the central table, her small hands resting on the glowing tactical display. "This vessel will operate differently now," she announced. "I expect efficiency, discipline, and immediate obedience." A few officers exchanged doubtful looks. One of them, Lieutenant Harris, whispered under his breath. "She's like a child playing commander without looking up," Vera said. Lieutenant Harris stepped forward. Harris froze. She raised her gaze. "Repeat what you just said," Harris stammered. I didn't," in one swift motion. She tapped a command on her datapad. Harris's access to ship systems was revoked instantly. The room went silent. "Doubt me again," she said, "and you will be reassigned to waste processing on a mining colony." Jake studied her closely. There was no hesitation in her voice, no uncertainty. She moved with absolute confidence, like she had done this 1,000 times before. And yet, her size, her youth, her almost delicate features, they didn't match the authority she carried after the meeting. Jake caught up with her in the corridor. "You don't waste time making enemies," he said. She glanced at him. "Enemies?" "No," she replied. Only soldiers who must learn quickly. He asked, "Why you? Why send someone like you to take over my post?" She stopped, her eyes narrowing just slightly. "Because the Empire needs victories, not egos," she said. And continued walking. Jake stood there for a moment, watching her go. There was something strange about her. Not just the way she spoke or the way she commanded, but the way the air seemed to shift around her. Like she carried a storm inside her tiny frame, and as much as he hated to admit it, a small part of him was starting to wonder if she might actually be as dangerous as the whispers claimed. The next morning, the ship's main corridor buzzed. With uneasy energy, crew members moved faster than usual, glancing at each other in silence. No one was sure how to act under Commander Vera's command. She was small, calm, but she had already shown she could strip someone of their post with a single tap on her datapad. Jake walked toward the briefing room, his mind still. Heavy with yesterday's humiliation, being replaced was bad enough. But being replaced by someone half his height and fresh from some unknown Imperial unit made it worse. Still, he wasn't ready to admit defeat when he stepped inside. The crew was already gathered around the long, tactical table. Vera stood at the head, her tiny hands clasped behind her back. Her silver hair caught the light from the holographic display, making it seem like she carried her own glow. "We begin a combat drill in 10 minutes. She announced without any greeting. "This will not be a simple simulation." Jake frowned. "With respect, Commander. Drills require planning and risk." Assessment, throwing the crew into a test without preparation. Could she cut him off? War does not wait for preparation, Commander Morgan. The enemy will not send a message asking if you are ready. Jake clenched his jaw. The way she spoke made it sound like she had been in more battles than him, which couldn't be possible. But she didn't flinch, didn't blink. She simply turned and tapped the console. The holographic map lit up, showing 3 red enemy ships approaching their position. "This is your scenario," she said. "Your mission, defend the ship with 0 casualties." The crew exchanged glances. 0 casualties in a combat drill was nearly impossible, especially with 3 enemy vessels. Jake's instinct told him to argue. But instead, he stayed quiet and watched when the drill began. The ship's alarm blared through the corridors. Red lights flashed, and the simulated enemy ships moved fast. Vera stood in the center of the bridge, her voice sharp and precise. "Port cannons, fire at bearing 127. Delay by 1.2 seconds. Now." The cannons fired just as the enemy ships swung into position. Scoring direct hits on their shields, Jake felt his chest tighten. That was no lucky guess. She had predicted their movement perfectly. The crew moved faster now, following her orders without hesitation. Each command was exact, no wasted words. No confusion. Even the most experienced officers on the bridge looked impressed. Halfway through the drill, the simulation suddenly shifted. The enemy ships were replaced with real signals. The alarms changed tone. This wasn't part of the program. A live transmission came through, static breaking the voice. "Unidentified vessel. Surrender your cargo or be destroyed." Jake's stomach dropped. This was no longer a game. They had stumbled into a pirate ambush. He turned to Vera, expecting her to panic. Instead, she smiled faintly. "Finally, something worth my time," she said. The pirates fired first, and the ship shook violently under the impact. Sparks rained from the ceiling, shields at 72%. An officer shouted, "Return fire, starboard batteries, but do not aim for their bridge." Vera ordered. Jake looked at her sharply. "Why hold back? We should destroy them now." She shook her head. "Not yet. Watch." The starboard batteries fired, hitting the pirate ship's engines. The vessels spun, losing control, but not exploding. Moments later, the pirates sent another message. "Wait." Wait, we surrender. Vera's lips curved in a satisfied smile. Target their weapons, disarm them, and then send boarding teams within minutes. The pirates were captured without a single loss on their side. The crew stared at her. In stunned silence, Jake concluded, "How did you know they'd surrender?" He asked. "Their formation was sloppy," she replied. Their leader feared losing profit more than losing honor the rest of the day. Whispers about her spread through the ship. Some said she was a genius. Others claimed she was using secret imperial tech. Jake kept his own thoughts to himself, but inside he was conflicted. On one hand, he hated the way she had humiliated him. On the other, he couldn't deny her skill. Later that evening, Jake found her alone in the observation deck, staring out at the endless stars. "You didn't have to make me look incompetent in front of my crew," he said. She didn't look at him. "I didn't make you look incompetent, Commander Morgan. You did that yourself. My job is to win, not to protect your pride." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "And what's your job when the enemy isn't pirates, but someone who won't surrender?" She finally turned her eyes toward him, those sharp, unblinking eyes. Then, she said softly, "I make sure they never have the chance to fire twice." Jake didn't respond. He just stood there, realizing something he hadn't wanted to admit. If this tiny alien commander really was his superior now, the galaxy might be a lot safer, but his pride whispered another truth. He wasn't ready to stop challenging her. Not yet. The following day, the crew gathered on the bridge, expecting a normal patrol. The hum of the ship's engines filled the air, steady and familiar. But when Commander Vera stepped onto the deck, everyone straightened. There was something in her expression, calm, but with a spark of challenge that made the air feel heavier. "Today," she said, her voice cutting through the room like a blade, "we will conduct a test." Jake frowned from his station. "Another drill?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, Commander Morgan. This will not be a drill. This will be a live operation." The crew exchanged nervous glances. A live operation without notice usually meant risk, danger, and no safety net. She tapped her datapad, and the central holomap lit up, showing an asteroid field several sectors away. Red markers blinked deep within the cluster. "A group of raiders has been hiding here," she explained. "The Empire has failed to catch them for months. They know our patterns. They know our routes. We will change that." Jake leaned forward. "And what's the catch?" he asked. Vera's lips curled slightly. "We will go in without shields, without active weapons, and without calling for backup." A low murmur spread through the crew. "That's suicide," muttered one of the gunners. Vera didn't raise her voice, but the room fell silent. "If you think survival depends on your shields and guns," she said, "you have already lost." The order was given, and the ship turned toward the asteroid field. The closer they got, the darker the space became. Massive rocks drifted like slow giants, shadows swallowing the light from distant stars. Without shields, every small impact from debris made the ship shudder. Jake's hands tightened on the edge of his console. His instinct screamed this was reckless. Vera stood at the center of the bridge, eyes locked on the tactical display. She gave orders with precise timing. Adjust course by 3 degrees starboard. Now cut engines to 30%. Maintain silent running. The ship glided into the asteroid belt like a shadow slipping through water. For nearly an hour, they moved in silence. The crew's breaths were the loudest sound. Jake kept scanning for enemy signatures, but saw nothing. "They're not here," he whispered to himself. Vera's voice answered from across the bridge. "They are here. They're watching." He looked at her, surprised. "You can't know that?" She didn't reply. Suddenly, 3 faint blips appeared on the edge of the map. They were moving in fast. "Contact," Jake called out. The raider ships were small, but fast. Weaving between asteroids with ease, Vera didn't order weapons. "Online, instead," she said. "Keep engines steady. Do not react." Jake turned to her. "They'll fire the moment they're close enough." She met his eyes. "They're waiting for us to panic. We won't give them that." The raiders closed in, surrounding them like wolves. A crackling voice came over the comms. "Imperial ship, power down and prepared to be boarded." Jake's hand hovered over the weapon controls, but Vera's voice stopped him. "Not yet," she said. Then, without warning, she gave a string of rapid commands. "Full engines, rotate 90 degrees port. Fire forward thrusters for 5 seconds. Now reverse." The ship twisted and slid between two massive asteroids. The raiders, expecting an easy target, overshot their approach. 2 of them clipped the rocks, their shields flickering. "Now, weapons online," Vera ordered. The gunners fired precise bursts, disabling engines and weapons without destroying the third raider tried to flee, but Vera had already predicted its path. "Forward cannons, firing solution Delta 6. She commanded. The shot hit perfectly, leaving the ship drifting helplessly. In less than 2 minutes, the fight was over. The crew stared in disbelief. No shields, no initial fire, and still not a scratch on their hull. Jake walked over to her as the raider crews were taken into custody. "You planned this from the start," he said. She nodded once. "I needed to know how you react when your safety nets are gone. Most commanders panic. You held your position." He frowned. "I also thought you were insane." She allowed herself the faintest smile. "That's acceptable, as long as you followed orders." The rest of the day, the crew's mood shifted. The doubt from before was fading. Whispers of genius and tactician replaced the earlier skepticism. Jake wasn't ready to say he trusted her, but he couldn't deny she had earned a measure of respect. Later, as the ship resumed its patrol, Jake found himself watching her from the corner of his eye. She stood by the viewport, the stars reflecting in her silver hair. She was still the smallest person in the room, but somehow she filled it more than anyone else. And Jake began to wonder if this was only a test. What would happen when the real war came? The summons came early in the morning. Jake was barely awake when the message flashed on his console. "Report to the briefing room at once." The words were cold, formal, and carried the weight of something final. He dressed quickly, straightened his uniform, and made his way down the narrow corridor. Each step echoed louder than the last. When he entered the room, the atmosphere was tense. The senior officers stood in 2 neat rows, their eyes forward. The central table glowed with the imperial crest at the far end. Commander Vera stood with her hands clasped behind her back. Beside her, an imperial envoy in black robes held a datapad. Jake took his place, his eyes narrowing. He could feel the attention of the crew pressing on him. Vera gave him a single look, not hostile, but unreadable. Then she spoke, her voice calm. "Commander Morgan, this is an official order from the Imperial High Command." The envoy stepped forward and read from the datapad. "Effective immediately, Commander Jake Morgan is relieved of his position as commanding officer of the ISS Valiant. His rank is hereby reduced to executive officer. Commander Vera will assume full command of the vessel." The words hit Jake like a physical blow. He stood stiff, refusing to show the sting of humiliation. The officers shifted uneasily. Some looked shocked. Others avoided meeting his eyes. Jake's voice was steady when he asked, "May I know the reason for this change?" Vera met his gaze. "Performance," she said. "Your record shows bravery. But bravery without precision wastes lives. The Empire cannot afford waste." Her words were not cruel, but they cut deep. Jake's pride burned. He wanted to protest, to list the missions he had won, the crews he had kept alive, but he remembered the drills, the pirate ambush, the asteroid raid. In every case, she had outmaneuvered him. The envoy handed Vera a silver command insignia. She pinned it to her collar with precise, deliberate movement. Then she turned to Jake and extended her hand. "You will remain as my second," she said. "You have skill, and I intend to sharpen it." He hesitated. Every instinct told him to refuse, to walk away from this ship and never look back, but a small voice inside reminded him, if he left now, he would never learn what made her so effective. Reluctantly, he shook her hand. "I, Commander," he said. The meeting ended and the crew dispersed in silence. Jake walked out slowly, his boots heavy against the deck. In the corridor, whispers began again. Some pitied him, others admired him for staying. But the one thing everyone agreed on was clear: the pint-sized alien now ruled the Valiant. Later that day, Jake sat at his new station. The shift in power was immediate. Vera issued orders with the same calm authority as before. But now there was no question of who held command. The crew obeyed her without hesitation. At first, Jake found himself watching for mistakes, waiting for her to falter, but she didn't. She moved through every task like she had been on this ship for years. Her ability to predict enemy movement was uncanny. Her crew management was sharp, never wasting words or time. During a quiet moment between patrols, Jake approached her in the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly outside, cold and bright. "You didn't have to take my rank this way," he said. She looked at him, her expression unreadable. "The Empire needs its best in the right positions," she replied. "This ship will face things you cannot imagine yet. I will lead us through them, but I will need you beside me, not behind me." Jake studied her. There was no arrogance in her tone, just certainty. And maybe that was what unsettled him the most. She truly believed she was the better choice. And so far, she had proven it. Before he could reply, the comms crackled. Incoming transmission from Imperial Intelligence. Vera turned and walked toward the bridge. Jake followed. The next mission was coming. And whatever it was, it would be her first official one as captain of the Valiant. And his first as her second. As the doors to the bridge opened, Jake realized something. His pride was wounded, yes, but a deeper feeling was forming beneath it. Curiosity. He wanted to see what she could do with full command. He wanted to see if her confidence was truly unshakable, and somewhere, deep down, he wondered if one day he might earn his rank back. Not by replacing her, but by proving to her, and to himself, that he could stand as her equal. The ship drifted in silent space, the hum of the engine steady. Most of the crew were asleep, the corridors dimly lit in night mode. Jake couldn't sleep. His mind was restless, replaying the past weeks over and over. Vera had taken his rank, won the crew's trust, and made him her second, all without raising her voice. He wandered toward the observation deck, hoping the stars would calm him, but as he turned a corner, faint light spilled from the strategy room. The door was half open. Inside, Vera stood alone at the central console, holographic maps floating in the air around her. She was studying them with intense focus. Her silver hair glowed faintly under the light. The maps weren't standard Imperial charts. They were marked with strange symbols, curves, and lines that didn't match human navigation patterns. Jake stepped closer, quietly. Couldn't sleep either. He asked. She didn't look up. "No," she replied. "The enemy doesn't sleep, so neither can I." Her voice was calm, but there was something heavier beneath it. Something she wasn't saying. Jake stepped into the room. "What are you looking at?" he asked. Vera turned slightly, her sharp eyes studying him. For a moment, he thought she might order him out, but instead, she gestured to the hologram. "These are movement patterns of the Corthon swarm," she said. "They are not a fleet in the way you know it. They are a living army, millions of ships grown, not built, each one controlled by a hive mind." Jake frowned. Never heard of them. She nodded. Few have. The Empire keeps it quiet. The swarm hasn't reached our core systems yet. But they will. They consume everything in their path. They don't take prisoners. They don't negotiate. Jake's eyes went back to the strange symbols. And you've been tracking them? He asked. She tilted her head. Not tracking, predicting the swarm moves in cycles. But their patterns are not visible unless you think the way they think. Something about her tone made him ask, and you can. She didn't answer. Right away, her gaze drifted to the far side of the map. I wasn't born this way, she said quietly. I was made this way. Jake blinked. Made. Vera's hands tightened behind her back. My species volunteered some of our brightest. For enhancement programs, we were altered faster reflexes, enhanced memory, and other things. She glanced at him. I can process thousands of variables in my head at once. I can see where a battle will be before it begins. Jake stepped closer, lowering his voice. So that's why the Empire sent you here. Not because of me, but because of them. She gave a slow nod. The Valiant will be the first ship to face the swarm in this sector. You'll have no warning when they come, and if we fail, they will spread. Silence hung in the room for a long moment. Jake stared at the map. Why keep this from the crew? He asked. Because fear breaks discipline, she replied. And because the High Command doesn't want panic before the fight begins. Jake studied her expression. There was no arrogance there. Only certainty and a weight he hadn't noticed. Before you fought them before, he guessed. Her jaw tightened slightly. Yes, she said, once, and only barely survived. They took my first ship, my crew, everything. Jake looked at her, really looked, for the first time since they'd met. He saw more than the sharp-eyed, cold commander. He saw someone carrying a loss too heavy to speak of. She turned back to the map, her voice steady again. This ship must be ready for them. That means no wasted movement, no hesitation. I need soldiers who follow orders without question. Jake gave a slow nod. You'll have that, he said. But you should know I'm not here just to follow you. I'm here to watch your back. Her eyes flicked toward him, and for the briefest second, her expression softened. Good, she said simply. He left the strategy room with the image of the strange alien maps burned into his mind. The stars outside seemed colder now, more dangerous, and for the first time. Jake realized that losing his rank might not have been the worst thing, because whatever was coming, the galaxy was going to need Vera in command. The warning came without sound. No alarms, no flashing lights. Only Vera's voice, calm but sharp, cutting through the quiet of the bridge. Contact, she said. Every head turned toward the tactical display. 3 faint red signatures had appeared at the edge of the system. Jake leaned forward. That's not close enough to trigger sensors, he said. Vera's fingers danced over her console. It will be, she replied. Those are scouts from the Corthon swarm. Her tone was flat, but Jake could feel the weight in it. Within minutes, the scouts vanished from sensors. Where did they go? One officer asked. Vera didn't look up. They're already here, she said, as if on cue. 6 massive shapes emerged from the dark beyond the nearest moon. Their hulls were organic, jagged, almost alive. Pulses of green light traveled along their spines like veins carrying poison. The bridge filled with the sound of officers calling out readings, shields up. Jake ordered instinctively, but Vera's voice cut across his, no. Divert all power to engines and forward weapons. Jake turned to her without shields. One hit will, she didn't blink. They won't get the first hit. The swarm ships moved in perfect unison, weaving between each other as if they were parts of one creature. Vera issued rapid commands, port thrusters, 2 degrees down. Fire burst at the lead ship's left flank, not the center. The Valiant obeyed. cannons spitting bright streams of energy that hit exactly where she'd aimed. The lead ship jerked back, its formation breaking for only a second. "That's it," Vera said. "Break their link." The crew didn't hesitate. They hit the second ship's side, forcing it to veer away. The organic vessels pulsed faster, like a heartbeat growing frantic. But the swarm adapted to ships. Swung low, aiming to flank the Valiant from opposite sides. Jake's gut tightened. "We can't outturn both," he said. Vera's voice came calm. "We don't need to prepare the grav mines." Jake's eyes widened. "Those are untested." She met his gaze. "So is losing." The grav mines deployed into the space between the flanking ships. Invisible until they activated the instant the swarm crossed their path. The mines pulsed with blue light, dragging the two vessels toward each other. They collided hard. Organic holes tearing like flesh. A cheer went up on the bridge, but Vera didn't smile. "Do not celebrate yet," she said. "This is only the first wave," as if her words summoned them. More red signatures flooded the tactical map. 10, 12, 15. The rest of the swarm had arrived. The Valiant shook under the first real volley. Sparks burst from the ceiling. A console exploded near the gunnery station, shields at 50%. An officer shouted, "Reroute auxiliary." "Power to starboard," Vera commanded instantly. "Jake, take charge of damage control." Jake sprinted from station to station, coordinating repairs. The ship trembled again as another blast hit the aft section. Vera's voice echoed through. "The comms. All gunners aim for the pulse lines on their hulls. Ignore everything else." Her strategy was risky. Targeting the glowing veins meant precision shots under heavy fire. But if it worked, it could cripple them, one by one. The Valiants. Shots struck true. Each pulse line hit caused a swarm ship to slow, drift, or fold in on itself. The bridge smelled faintly of burned circuits, the air tense and hot. Then the largest swarm vessel emerged, a massive spiked beast, 3 times the length of the Valiant. It moved slower, but radiated power. "That's their hive leader," Vera said, her voice colder now. "If we kill it, the others will scatter." Jake returned to his post. "How?" She met his eyes by doing what they'll never expect, getting close. The Valiant dove straight toward the massive ship. Enemy fire rained down, shaking the hull. But Vera didn't flinch. "Hold course," she said. "Now, all." Weapons, full spread, at point-blank range. Every cannon, missile, and railgun fired at once, tearing through the creature's armor. A final shot from the forward railgun punched deep into the hive's core. The ship convulsed, green light, flashing wildly before going dark. Across the tactical map, the remaining swarm vessels broke formation. Scattering into deep space, the bridge was silent for a moment, then filled with cheers. Officers clapped each other on the back. Jake let out a breath he hadn't realized. He was holding. He looked at Vera, who stood at the center, calm as ever. Her eyes, though, carried the faintest shadow, not relief, but readiness for the next battle. Jake stepped closer. "You just saved the sector," he said. She glanced at him. "We bought time, that's all. The swarm will be back, and next time, they'll be ready for me." The thought settled over Jake like ice. The victory was real, but so was the warning. The galaxy had just seen what Commander Vera could do, and so had the enemy. The smell of burned circuits still lingered in the air. The Valiant drifted quietly now, her engines humming low. The crew moved through the bridge like shadows, tired but alive. The battle had ended hours ago. But the weight of it still sat. On everyone's shoulders, Jake stood at his station, running final diagnostics. The hull was scarred. The shields were drained. But the ship had survived. He glanced toward the center of the bridge. Where Vera stood, small but unshaken, her silver hair caught the faint glow from the consoles. her posture still perfect. One by one, officers came to her, offering quiet nods. Some gave reports, others simply said, "Thank you, Commander." She answered each one with the same calm acknowledgement. No boasting, no speeches, just a leader doing her duty. When the last officer stepped away, Jake walked over. "The crew is yours now," he said. His voice carried no resentment this time, only truth. She looked at him, her sharp eyes softening just slightly. "They were always the Empire's," she replied. "We only borrow them until the fight is over." Jake leaned against the railing. "You know, when you first arrived, I thought you were here to humiliate me." She didn't deny it. She only said, "When I first arrived, I thought you were a man who valued pride over victory." He smirked faintly. "Guess we were both wrong, eh?" Quiet moment passed between them, broken only by the soft hum of the ship. Then the comms crackled. "Command is hailing us." Vera gave a short nod to the comms officer. The holographic image of Admiral Rivas appeared, his face stern but eyes alert. "Commander Vera," the Admiral said, "the Valiant's victory has been reported across the sector. You have the Empire's thanks." His gaze shifted to Jake. "And Executive Officer Morgan, your record of damage control and tactical support has been noted." Jake straightened. "Thank you, Admiral," Rivas continued. "The swarm will not stop here. You are to prepare for further engagements. Resupply at Delta Station and await orders." The message ended, and the bridge fell quiet again. As the crew began preparing for the jump to Delta Station, Jake found himself thinking about the battle. The strange way Vera seemed to move before anyone else could react. He realized that her command was not just about skill, it was about trust. She trusted herself completely, and now the crew trusted her too. That night, the mess hall was full, but the mood was different. Laughter mixed with exhaustion. Officers and engineers alike raised glasses in quiet celebration. At the center table, a seat was left open for Vera. She entered quietly, but the room fell into a respectful hush. Then, slowly, the crew began to clap. It wasn't loud or chaotic, it was steady. Deliberate, the sound of a crew acknowledging their leader. Jake watched her pause for a fraction of a second, then inclined her head in thanks. She sat, and for the first time since taking command, she allowed herself a faint smile. Later, when most of the crew had gone to rest, Jake found her alone in the observation deck again. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the glass. "You could get used to that kind of applause," he said. She glanced at him. "Applause fades," she replied. "Respect lasts longer." Jake nodded slowly. "You've got mine," he said simply, for a moment. She didn't answer. Then she said, "And you have mine." They stood in silence, watching the stars. The war was far from over. The swarm would return, stronger and smarter. But for now, the Valiant had earned a victory, and with it, something even rarer. Two commanders, once at odds, now stood side by side, ready for whatever came next. And though the galaxy would remember the pint-sized alien who saved a sector, those who were there would remember something more. The moment respect replaced rivalry, and the crew became unbreakable.